This is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV Prime.
Well, it's that time of the year when so many students and parents, of course, looking forward to the next phase of their education, which is, of course, getting into a good college, charting the next phase of your life. We thought perhaps this is the best time to have a conversation on just what are the options out there. Are there certain options that both students and parents are not looking at closely enough, and why is that, and what you can do to keep some of that stress and anxiety, which I know is part and parcel of the game, but how you can try and stem a bit of that. So it's our great pleasure to welcome Rupamanjari Ghosh, Vice Chancellor, Shiv Nadar University. Thanks, ma'am.
Thank you
so much for taking our time to be here. Ma'am, you're here speaking to us at a time when there is, which can only be described as a Delhi University crisis. There's been much hue and cry on the normalization of marks and how students from some states, like say Tamil Nadu this year, and it could be another state next year, sort of seem to be doing far better or having scored a lot better, and therefore taking a lot of seats at reputed institutions, say like SRCC. How do you see this issue, ma'am? What is this normalization of marks? And as an educationist, what do you believe we can do to tackle it?
This is, as you said rightly, it's indeed a crisis. Whenever you try to judge something by mere numbers, the system can game it, and therefore you are bound to fail. So judging potential of our freshers, judging the potential of our youth is a very, very serious game. You know, it cannot be just done by looking at board marks, and the variation is there, so you can try to normalize, but that's just a flat rate way of looking at youth talent. So if you are looking for my passion, where I am likely to excel, because I think that's what the country's drive should be in the higher education sector. We are not talking about primary education here. It's essentially a very elite kind of a group that you're looking at who are coming to the higher education sector. You'll be looking for excellence, and measurement of excellence cannot ever be done by just looking at these numbers in a democratic fashion.
Right.
So the entrance test should be a little more evolved, you know, but what we end up doing, and that's the crisis in my mind in one word, is that rather than selecting students, we are eliminating. So it's a game of elimination because of large numbers and not selection of the right ones.
Right. Right, ma'am. You know, and this is, of course, important because we're now, how are we eliminating? We're saying it's 100% or nothing. So if you're getting 95, you're not good enough. You're not going to make it. How do you, and this is the crisis that we've been looking at for the last couple of years. I mean, for English courses at some of our India's top institutions, they're asking for 99%.
Right.
So despite all the sort of chest beating and hand wringing, nothing's happening. In fact, it's getting more acute.
Yes. I think we are at fault. We educationists in some way are at fault, because I'd like to link the input to the output, because you should be measuring your success of any system, be it we are talking specifically of the entrance system, by looking at the output. It really is a bit of a shame, because the same people, if you subject them to any creative testing, okay, they fail miserably, and you sort of, the training that you have given in school for 10+2 years seem to be not aligned with the demand of the higher education sector in the globe. India cannot be just, you know, we are part of the globalized world. So I think this is something, there is some real soul searching to be done, but rather than talking about taking every sector and trying to reform it, we at the higher education sector will try to reform our part of the game. And I think whether it's public or private, wherever, you would see that maybe because of the scale, private institutions, some specifically, have come up with their own entrance modules.
Right.
It's a bit of a challenge for the students, but I think they enjoy taking these tests. Yes, they enjoy the kind of tests, for example, we offer, and as a result, then, you know, it's not really an elimination process, but we are allowed to then choose a few that probably align with our kind of vision. And I think the country sort of needs this, not a flat rate kind of democratic, I mean, it's a wrong use of the term, but actual selection, because this should be all about excellence.
Right. So, ma'am, looking at the space that we're looking at right now, looking at the crisis in say Delhi University, demand, I mean, now there's a demand
Yes.
to have a quota. Like, why don't students from Delhi, they're losing out, barely any, majority come from outside.
Yes.
So do you think this is perhaps a good time for private universities in India to step up to the challenge, because our numbers are enormous? We've not been able to cater to the
Precisely.
demand. So
Precisely.
how do you see that?
Precisely. I think this has been, I mean, everybody is talking about it, the quantity, access, and then quality. The quantity part, the private sector can just only supplement. It's not, the public sector cannot wish away its responsibility. And so, but we can provide an alternative in a complementary way, but it has to be essentially a very selective intervention, because the scale of things we cannot quite match. So this is an opportunity to also try out different models, because as you rightly said, because of the scale of things, there is a lot of opportunity. Every challenge, you can look at it as an opportunity, and that's what the private sector should do. These challenges are our opportunities to cater to maybe a different class of people that would bring in the India of the future that we are looking at in the next 5 to 10 years. So yes, of course, but then quality and credibility are the two issues. And I think we cannot, like all public sector universities, you cannot, or colleges, you cannot paint it with the same brush. Public
Same
sector,
goes for private.
yes, and same goes for private. Not everybody is doing the same thing. They're not even aiming to do the same thing. So the market is little unsure.
Right.
So therefore, they
And
don't.
there's a lot of confusion, because
Yes.
even as a parent, if I put myself in this,
Yes.
in this spot of in place of all those
Yes.
parents, it's
Yes.
very confusing. You just don't know.
Yes, and I think we are trying. This would take a few years probably to establish credibility. Also because we have a past where you do not ask critical questions. So the decisions are not always very informed decisions. You go with the trend, what you think is the trend.
Absolutely.
And you are not informed enough. I mean, when the IT jobs are really at a low, maximum number of applications are in computer science.
Right.
It beats all logic.
Right.
So the select few, of course, would be always appreciated, but it shows to me that the market is not really informed. People are sort of following what they think is the trend, and as a result getting confused,
Right.
because they're also afraid to try out anything new.
Right.
The private sector, particularly the good ones that are coming up now, are relatively new. So,
Right.
but you can see the trend, you can get acquainted and
Right.
take a bit of risk, because unless you take a risk, you never gain.
Right.
And so that goes for all sectors, all the stakeholders
Right.
in this game.
Right.
So in the private sector also, I think we are taking a bit of risk,
Sure.
investing too much,
Right.
trying to do something. We are not sure whether the country would be appreciative of this, but we are sort of trying it out. But unless I take this risk, I would never know.
Right.
And I think that's where the crisis is. A little bit of our problem, that maybe the private sector also doesn't advertise enough,
Right. Right. Absolutely.
saying what they're trying to do, because the scale is not much. It's a very specialized kind of an intervention, small scale intervention, trying to get to the excellence that I was
Right.
talking about
Right.
in select areas, because the private pocket, however deep, cannot match the government resources.
Sure.
So you have to be essentially selective.
Right.
You have to have a strategic vision, and then you have to have operational key strategies again to be successful in today's world.
Sure.
So I think it's happening, and you'd see a lot of change, but somebody has to take that step to say, hey, I want to be different.
You made 2 points, ma'am, which I want to bring up. One, of course, when we're talking about private universities, like we're talking about public also, we're talking about credible.
Yes.
Because education is now big business. It's the
Yes.
business of education is a serious problem, and
Yes.
it's very, very real. So, ma'am, that's one. B, when you mentioned the fact that people follow trends,
Yeah.
they're also following our own internal rankings. X
Yes.
has said, I am number one. B has said, I'm number one in my region. C has said, I'm number one in this vast area. So, first question to you would be, how do you see these rankings that we come up with, and what is the weightage that students and parents should actually place on them, because that's again so confusing.
Yes, I think so far it has been an informal kind of a ranking as a perception in the market. X college is very good.
Right.
Everybody says it's very good in that
Right.
particular subject.
Right.
Now, nobody has done a quantification of this perception. I cannot continuously blame the evaluators for my poor performance. So I can criticize, and I'm going to give you an alternate model, saying this is the way Indian institutions should be ranked. Because some of us have social responsibility inbuilt, which, for example, doesn't show up in world ranking things.
Sure.
There's a perception that takes a bit of marketing strategy, there's a lot that is outside academics that you need to do to build their perception. But if you leave out these couple of things, what is essentially true, 60% of your weightage comes from your research. The reason I am mentioning to you when you are talking about undergraduate education is that traditionally we tend to segregate teaching and research into two different compartments. Undergraduate colleges do only teaching, they don't do any research. Research happens somewhere else. Now, this is an outdated concept, outdated by hundreds of years. I mean, people know that. Teaching and research have a perfect synergy, and they should be, that synergy should be exploited. Because when researchers are in constant touch with young minds, inquisitive minds, research improves. And when a researcher teaches, that teaching is of a different quality.
Right.
Because it's not about dissemination of knowledge, which is really information in the old way, which is now available to every student at the click of a button on the internet. So I think the teachers are not supposed to be just custodian of information,
Right.
but so they should be supplemented by research, and that gives you the filter, that's the perspective that sort of enriches.
But you think private universities are sort
Yes,
of getting
so
into
they're
prime?
universities.
Right.
They're universities where undergraduate education is happening. So therefore, that is the right kind of a model, that teaching and research are done under the same umbrella by the same kind of people. So undergraduate level students are exposed to research. They know what it is to solve a problem. So that creative problem solving skill enables them to find a proper career, be it in research or in industry. In industry also you need the same thing.
Right.
Somebody who is thinking
Right.
and not just memorizing something and vomiting it out. So I think the entire, if you are rethinking education, we should rethink in bringing these two parts together, as has been shown to be very, very successful all over the world.
Right.
So I think this is what, for example, we are trying to do. Shiv Nadar University is one university under one umbrella, multidisciplinary approach. So the student is also free to choose. Once you are in the IIT, if you have made a mistake, you are stuck for life. Once you are in ISER, you have made a mistake, you are stuck for life. Finally, you go and try to do an MBA, and you don't do very well in IIM, you are stuck. Under one umbrella in a multidisciplinary university like ours, we have all the schools. They are not service departments.
Right.
They are good in their own right. And the student has the option to choose, even if you make a mistake. Because the point is that they should be allowed to follow their passion.
Right.
The chances of excellence
Are then, of course, much
Much
greater.
higher.
Interesting, ma'am, that you brought up the IITs and IIMs, because I was going to ask you that you know, while we are sort of obsessed with some university, like say Delhi University, or we, you know, we are also obsessed with some colleges in these universities, we're also obsessed with science, we're still obsessed with management. The IIT-IIM combination is still so coveted. It doesn't matter if that's what you want to do, but you're told that that is sort of the road to success.
Yes.
Do you see us breaking out of this? Because there's much talk, but do you sort of see this? It's a mindset issue. So I would imagine it will take a couple of years to...
It would take a few years. I think the talk has started. People have started seeing, because that accounting, thanks to the professionalism of these two institutes, IITs and IIMs, they're transparent. You can actually see what they're doing and what their output has been, and it's really a coveted position for a few. So the bulk of the country is not serviced by them,
Right.
but the bulk of the country also needs different kinds of skills, different kinds of knowledge, different kinds of initiatives. And for that, maybe we need to look elsewhere, and people are realizing that it's not all so bad outside. Sometimes it's even better.
To all those who are watching and sort of say, you know, because there is a lot of despair among so many students not having made it, you know, and we constantly are told that I can't afford X, Y, Z, and I had, you know, this had to be my option. What would you say? What are the other options that they can look at? Where do they start?
They should look at these new universities. You know, many of us are offering huge scholarships. So at the outset, it looks like it's expensive. But there are huge scholarships available. So merit is the condition. You do well in the entrance exam, you get selected, scholarships are available. 90% scholarships are available. So it's actually not that expensive. And
So do your homework.
Yes,
Don't
and I
just
think
sort of-
just be a little more informed.
Right.
You know, people just do not do where they need to spend time. They are on their Facebook all the time.
Right.
Just go and search. We are available on
generation
Facebook
thing,
too.
yeah.
Look at the feedback.
Right.
Use your brain to figure it out where you want to do.
Right.
And it takes a bit of courage, little of risk taking. I mean, I'm sure. But you know, your chances are not blocked. So it's also important, not just the career, the path to it should also be enjoyable. Life is too short
Right.
to waste like this. So I think they should enjoy every bit of it. When they enjoy, the output is going to be good. And I'm looking forward to that.
So, ma'am, when students come to you, they come from this system where they've been sort of told that marks are unfortunately, it is just reality, it is just everything. And then they come into, say, an atmosphere like yours, they come into a university like yours. Is there unlearning to be done? Do you have to sort of get into their minds and say, unlearn, give me a clean slate and I start again?
Yes,
give me a sense of what that is like.
Yes, I think it's very exciting for us too, because we try to choose the material that would be suitable for this, but we get all kinds in the end. And yeah, the learning process through which we also learn, because we sort of see how to mold. So each individual in the higher education sector, we are not again talking about primary or secondary, each individual is unique and they have unique potential. So our job is actually to unleash that. So we go through processes which are, I believe, quite enjoyable, and we let them explore different streams from the experts of that places. So we have, for example, concepts of university-wide electives. So anybody from any major can take any elective from anywhere.
I see.
And you try it out. You like film and television, you want another, then we have an option for you even if you're in engineering or you're trying to do physics and you want to try out something in environmental sciences, go ahead and do it.
And that's the way the world's top universities approach it, that why just don't stick to the straight and narrow.
Yes.
Open your horizon.
Yes,
really.
and open your horizon and figure it out, but you need to also go deep.
Sure.
You know, there is no...
And both are possible.
Both are possible in a setup like, for example, Shiv Nadar University.
Right.
We allow you a broad-based curriculum framework, but we really require you to go deep in one particular subject. Because it's not a fight between depth versus breadth. It's actually both. And then when you find your passion, you go deep into it, because there is no shortcut to excellence. And our key word is actually that, find your passion and then strive for excellence. And I think that's where the youth is learning. The few hundred students that we have already trained, there would be a percolation effect. And they would go out and say, this experience has been that way.
So and word of mouth is often sort of
and
like
I think that's the way in India.
True.
Yeah.
True.
So it's really exciting for us too, because this experiment is never dull. Because each time your experiment, the lab is different, it's another individual, and you're figuring it out how that young mind works. But I believe in catching them young, because if it's too late at the master's and PhD level, so undergraduates are...
This is perhaps the best time.
The best
what
time.
is, ma'am, the most rewarding experience about being in this private university space in India, and what is the most frustrating aspect of it?
Well, you know, I'm actually a very much public university figure, and last 4 years I've ventured into the private thing, so it took, converts are sometimes more loyal. And there is actually there is a story to it. That's the reason. The things that one wants to do, the nice thing about particularly the new private universities is that I can build the system I like. So it has to be an alignment of vision with my people, the founder. And if you really like that vision, nobody is stopping you from doing what you wish to do. Whereas in the public sector, if you or an established system, I don't care whether it's public or private, in an established place, you don't like something, changing that is...
because it's worked in the past. So
yes, and it's after years of effort, you have incremental improvements, if at all. Here, the accountability is staring at you everywhere. So whatever you do, you are accountable for it. And that challenge is my attraction. I like this challenge. So this is really the positive part. Frustration is sometimes ignorance of the market. Trying to do something big, we are trying to make something that nobody has done. And then also we talk about PPP. But in effect, when it happens, we find ourselves somewhat alone in the journey, but it's changing very, very much. And I would say that with this government also, the policies have changed. Our people are writing for research grants from DBT, DST, DRDO, CSIR, and they're getting funding. So there is an acknowledgement that some of the places, I would not again say that everybody is the same, some of the places are really, when we say we are a research-focused university, we are very, very serious about it, and that is showing. And so that is something sometimes a little frustrating, because you want to be mainstream, and we know what we have to offer, and it's sometimes a bit of a slow process in India. And but it's changing, and that's again I would like to say it's a very, very positive thing.
Sure, ma'am, I'm running out of time, but you mentioned the government, you mentioned these partnerships that are key. There's also another debate on the kind of education we want our future generations to learn, and what has become known as the saffronization of education. Where do you sort of stand in all of that? How much is too much?
Well, any extreme is bad. I mean, extreme red, extreme saffron, whatever. I think a true intellectual can never take a step forward. You know, we keep debating any issue. There is a positive side, there is a negative side. So, at some point, when you take a leap of faith, it has to be a faith. So that gets colored. Now, I'm not allergic to anything because I think. In spite of that, we should not be so fragile that any blow will actually topple you down.
Right.
So I think we are strong enough to have it. This spectrum of colors, I think it adds to my
Interesting,
palette.
given that you have this JNU background and then you're still open
Yes,
to the spectrum of colors. And then
I'm okay with that actually, because if you give me an argument that I can win against, it makes my argument stronger. Unless you have counterpoint of points of view, you become complacent, and that's end of higher education sector.
Right.
So if I can argue it out, it makes my argument stronger.
Right.
So personal beliefs is different. I keep it aside.
Sure.
But I think as a professional, I have no allergy towards anything, because I think I can counter them if I know what is the right path. So always the only mission for me is we stand for the right thing to do. And what is the right thing to do is our collective wisdom.
Right.
And I think if our students are listening and they get this in their blood, the culture should be that we always do the right thing. It doesn't matter if it is not the most convenient thing, because often it is not.
Right. And so I think it can only happen when you're secure in your knowledge and secure in
You
your
got that.
position.
That's what I'm saying.
Absolutely optimistic note to end on. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you
Manjari
so
Ghosh.
much.
Thanks very
It's my
much. Well,
pleasure.
that's it. It's a wrap then from the entire team. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye. And remember, as always, keep your feedback coming in. Bye-bye.
Catch the heads-up episodes you might have missed during the week at these times only on NDTV Prime.